Hello class, and welcome to a new analysis of The Road by Nancy Cato. The Road is a lyric poem about a night drive that becomes a meditation on time, speed, and the human desire to outpace the past. Nancy Cato was an Australian poet and novelist best known for her historical fiction, but her poetry shares the same deep engagement with landscape and the passage of time. Before we look at the stanzas, let's analyze the title, The Road. First of all, the definite article the rather than gives the road a specific, almost mythic status. It's not just any road, but it is the road. There is also immediate symbolism. The road is both a literal highway, a motorway, but also a metaphor for the journey of life and time. Let's now move on to the first stanza. I'll leave you a moment to read the first stanza and form your own opinion before I begin the analysis. The first stanza starts off with a personification. I made the rising moon go back behind the shouldering hill. Here, this personification gives the hill muscular and physical shoulders as if it was a living body. The connotation of shouldering obviously suggests weight and effort, making the landscape feel actively resistant, robust, strong, and therefore it makes the speaker's conquest of it, which we will explore later, feel heroic and physical. The next literary device that instantly stands out is the anaphora, as the two phrases, the two clauses, start with I, and followed by an action verb. I made, I raced. The repeated I at the start of successive clauses asserts a bold, active, godlike speaker, and powerful speaker from the very first word. The poem is therefore a declaration of power by the speaker, of agency, and not just an observation. The speaker is active in the world he is describing. Next, we see two hyperboles in this first stanza. I made the rising moon go back. I raced till time itself stood still. Making the moon retreat and freezing time are impossible feats, impossible exaggerations that convey the hallucinatory feeling of speed. Driving at a particularly fast pace makes one feel strong, fast, powerful, and this is conveyed through this hyperbole. The speed at which the speaker is going is so exhilarating that it enables him to accomplish Herculean tasks, impossible tasks. These hyperboles might also convey the speaker's hubris. His confidence is turning into pride, as he is perhaps overestimating his own abilities. Next, we have sibilance. The soft hissing S sounds in stood still create a smooth and controlled sonic texture. The softness of the sibilance contrasts with the violence of the speed, making the speaker's power feel effortless rather than strained and forced. The speaker is able to control the universe without even struggling. And we have another alliteration, more specifically a dental alliteration with T sounds, such as in time, till, itself, stood, still. This consonance, created by these sharp, percussive, and ticking sounds of the T, perhaps mimics, recreates the beat of the engine and the relentless ticking of the clock the speaker is trying to outrun. Here we already have indications of the theme of time, not only with this alliteration, but also with time itself stood still, so with the actual content of the stanza. By driving fast, the speaker is able to outrun time and therefore freeze it, make it stand still. Let's now move on to stanza number 2. I'll leave you a moment to read the second stanza and form your own opinion before I begin the analysis. As you have read in this stanza, the stars trail helplessly behind as the speaker surges, rushes forward. The feeling of exhilaration, of exuberance given by speed, conferred by the speed, is conveyed through the speaker's control over day and night. Let's now move on to an analysis of the literary devices. The first literary device that instantly jumps out at me is swarmed, is the personification in the word swarmed. Here, the stars are compared to a crowd of living creatures moving together behind the trees. This diction gives the night sky energy, relentlessness, and abundance. It is manifest in the stanza that the sky is coming alive, it moves, it becomes mobile. And this really reinforces the hallucinatory and inebriating nature of the speed, which transports the speaker into a surreal, dreamlike, unreal universe. In this universe, the impossible becomes feasible, as even the stars behind him and the sky moves with great energy. Despite this energy and kinetic power of the sky behind him, the word but, which commences the second line, acts as a juxtaposition. The word but here marks a turn. The universe moves, sure, but the speaker moves faster. And this really reinforces the excitement and thrill engendered by driving so fast. One feels that it is going faster than the universe itself. Then, just as in stanza 1, we have another hyperbole, as the speaker says that he is able to make the sun arise and turn night back to day. And this hyperbole has the same effect as the previous ones. It shows the feeling of power, of godlike force conferred by speed. However, this hyperbole also represents a gradation. Whilst in stanza 1, the speaker had stopped the moon, in stanza 2, he now commands the sun. So his power is growing. First it was the moon, then the stars, and finally the sun. This rising sequence, in which each claim is greater than the last, shows how the speaker's power, conferred by his speed, knows no bounds. It grows incessantly and cannot be stopped. Finally, we once more have similes, which sustain the sonic momentum established in stanza 1. Let's now move on to stanza number 3. I'll leave you a moment to read the third stanza and form your own opinion before I begin the analysis. As you have read, in this stanza, darkness stretches behind the car while brightness fills the road ahead. Symbolically, the brightness which is ahead might convey the optimism that the speaker has for the future in spite of the darkness and sadness of the past. The stanza starts off with a simile, like a long black carpet, which gives the night a smooth, tactile texture. It unrolls obediently behind the car. Whilst darkness is usually associated with fear, here Cato, by making it unroll obediently and presenting it as a smooth and soothing texture, really strips it of all its menace. It makes it totally unthreatening. This might show how hope for the future, which is symbolized by the light ahead, can completely domesticate and override the darkness of one's past, however scary it may be. We then have a beautiful instance of enjambment after the second line of the third stanza. The sentence spilling over the line mimics how the darkness spills across the countryside just like a carpet. The enjambment therefore mimics the very motion it describes. Form and meaning and content fuse here perfectly. As foreshadowed previously, we obviously here have a beautiful show of symbolism by Cato. Darkness unrolls behind, whilst brightness lies ahead. And this spatial contrast is also a temporal one, as the past is symbolized here by the space behind the car, by the area behind the car, which is dark and receding, whilst the future, symbolized by the space in front of the car, is lit and beckoning. This symbolism of light as representing hope is as old as time. Historically, the night was associated with danger, as it was usually when predators came out. Light, on the other hand, was associated with rebirth, a new beginning, a new day. The road, therefore, now unmistakably becomes a symbol for a life's journey. Let's now move on to the fourth stanza, where I will leave you a couple of seconds to pause the video and read the stanza for yourself. In this stanza, the roadside objects flashing past become a direct metaphor for the passage of time. The stanza begins with onomatopoeia. Here, the pronunciation of the word whizzed mimics the actual sound and physical sensation of objects flashing past at speed. The word, therefore, makes the reader feel the rush in their own body. We then once more have personification, as fence post whizzed, telephone poles loomed up, slipped into the past. Here, inanimate objects are given an active and almost human behavior. They rush, they loom, and slip away as if they were alive. This once more reinforces the inebriating effect, the rush, the thrill one feels when going particularly fast, as the speaker is transported into a universe, a surreal universe where even objects which are immobile and inanimate move. The theme of time is explored here very explicitly and unambiguously. Fence posts are compared to days that fly too fast, while telephone poles to years. Each roadside object the speaker passes in his drive represents a unit of time. The space in between two roadside objects, such as two fence posts or two telephone poles, represents a day, a month, a year. The speed at which the speaker is therefore encountering these objects might symbolize how fleeting and how short our lives are. Days go by as fast as the time it takes to reach a fence post. I forgot to highlight it, but we also have a show of gradation, as days going by swiftly turn into years. This once more reiterates the futility of time, as whilst the passage of a few days might not seem too alarming, these days soon accumulate and become years. Therefore, beneath the poem's exhilaration and the speed at which he's going, there's really a melancholic undercurrent. Whilst we are living in the present moment, enjoying the exhilaration of it, years and days are irreversibly and quietly slipping into the past. The speed at which time goes by is reinforced by the consonants and the repeated W sounds in whizzed and wires, which create a rushing, liquid, sonic texture that carries the reader forward. Let's now move on to stanza number 5. Once more, I will leave you a couple seconds to pause the video and read it for yourself. In this closing stanza, all boundaries and all frontiers dissolve. The speaker, the landscape, and time itself merge into a single unified experience as the car drives toward the sun. We first of all have a striking showcase of parallelism. Light and movement, sky and road, and life and time. Here, the parallelism joins, unites concepts that might seem distinct into three different groups. However, these three distinctions, these three pairs, eventually collapse as they all unite into one. The speed in which the speaker is going seems to have transported him or her into a state of trance in which all surroundings merge, fuse into a dreamy and hallucinatory recount. This idea is reinforced through a polysyndeton. The repeated ands pile up. Nothing is excluded, everything merges into one. Not only does polysyndeton wants to convey the absolute and universal nature of this fusion into one, it also creates a rushing and unstoppable momentum. Finally, the poem ends in a beautiful symbolism. I drove towards the sun. The sun here represents dawn, hope, the future, and the Enlightenment. And the tone is made all the more triumphant by the short declarative sentence in which the poem ends. It conveys the idea of a bold, audacious, and decisive speaker, committed to driving towards the sun. It is interesting how the poem ends not in arrival but in motion. The poem started with a drive and ends in a drive. The speaker is therefore still driving towards his objective, which shows his purpose and devotion. Whilst we might want to interpret this ending as a triumphant and optimistic one, there is also a much more sinister connotation. This idea of moving too close to the sun is a long established theme in mythical literature, most notably through the myth of Icarus. According to Greek mythology, in order to escape the island of Crete, Icarus flew away. However, emboldened by this superhuman feat he had accomplished by flying, he decided to fly way too close to the sun. Therefore, the wings attached to his sandals eventually melted, and Icarus fell down to his death into the sea. This myth cemented the idea that at times, by being too ambitious and wanting too much, it ends up backfiring. And this might just be what Nancy Cato wants to convey. Throughout the poem, the speaker made increasingly hubristic claims, commanding the moon, outrunning the stars, controlling day and night, and now he drives directly towards the sun itself. This is the exact trajectory of Icarus. Therefore, this final line may serve as a warning by Nancy Cato. Crucially, the poem is narrated in the simple past tense, I drove. The speaker is looking back. We never hear what happened after this poem. The poem therefore ends mid-drive, like Icarus at the highest point of his flight. The reader is left to wonder whether the exhilaration is the whole story or if it only is the first half. Let's now move on to an analysis of structure, form, and rhythm. First of all, the form. The poem consists of 5 quatrains, 5 stanzas of 4 lines each. This regular, symmetrical form gives the poem an ordered and disciplined quality that contrasts with the wildness of the experience it describes. As mentioned before, Nancy Cato describes a totally surreal and unreal world where the laws of physics are no longer respected. The rhyme scheme is ABCB in each stanza, and in some stanzas it is ABAB. The second and fourth lines always rhyme, whilst the first and third don't always. This gives each stanza a sense of partial closure. The journey moves toward a resolution, but never quite arrives until the final line. In terms of rhythm, the poem is written in a broadly iambic meter, alternating between lines of iambic tetrameter and iambic trimeter. And this is a defining feature of the ballad meter. The ballad is a traditional form of poetry in which the speaker tells a story. It therefore fits perfectly in this poem, associated with storytelling, momentum, and a drive. To conclude, The Road is a poem about a speaker who drives through the night so fast that the moon retreats, the stars fall behind, and time itself stands still. Through this poem, Cato develops four intertwined themes. The first is the relationship between speed and power. Speed is not only described as a way to go from point A to point B. The speed at which the speaker is going endows to him an almost godlike power, enabling him to make the moon go back, outrun the stars, and force the sun to rise. And this really recreates the sensation which speeds creates. It is a form of almost godlike dominance over nature itself. The faster the speaker goes, the more the universe is malleable, can be controlled by the speaker's simple will. The second theme is the passage of time. The fence posts that whizzed like days, that fly too fast, and the telephone poles that loomed like years transform the roadside landscape into a clock, measuring a human life. Time in this poem does not pass gently. It slips, it flies, it vanishes into the past before it can be grasped. The third theme is hope. The night in this poem is absolutely not neutral. It blatantly represents the perhaps sad or even traumatic experiences that the speaker has gone through in his life. Despite this, the speaker never wavers. They race towards the brightness, keep their eyes on the sun, and refuse to slow down and get bogged down by his past. It is clear that the poem's direction is forward, and that forward movement is itself an expression of hope. The fourth and final theme is the escape from mortality. On a symbolic level, the darkness behind the speaker might not just represent the night, but death itself. Holding back the night, making the moon retreat, and commanding the sun to rise might be, beneath the surface, an attempt to hold back the inevitable. Whilst the speaker cannot stop time, as the fence posts and telephone poles remind them, they can refuse to yield to it, to give in. By driving towards the sun, Cato shows that there is a way to defy mortality itself by focusing on the present moment and moving forward, moving with hope. However, Cato ends on a deliberate ambiguity. 5 words, I drove towards the sun, carry the echo of Icarus, who flew too close to the sun out of pride and fell. The speaker's desire to avoid death, avoid the inevitable, might just be an example of hubris, an echo to the story of Icarus, who by wanting to escape his life in Crete ended up dying the worst of deaths. And with that, my analysis of The Road by Nancy Cato is concluded. Please leave a like, comment, and I'll see you in the next one.